Hello and thanks for joining us on the midweek edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Today on the program, President Buhari leads 14-man delegation to South Africa over xenophobia as 161 Nigerians arrive from Libya. Power supply suffer steady decline as key operators bicker. And later on the show, Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal uphold the elections of Governors Ganduje, Tambuwal, and Lalong. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Lekon Shote. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. For the Nigerian government, it really doesn't matter whether the dog should wag the tail or the tail the dog regarding the sour relationship between the country and South Africa over xenophobic attacks. President Muhammadu Buhari led a 14-man delegation to the Rainbow Nation, apparently in a fence-mending move. Stronger bilateral economic ties and the need for compensation are the cat on the pally. While members of the delegation are heading out, another set of stranded Nigerians returned from Libya. Officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, received 161 of them at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, on Tuesday. Meanwhile, let's hear the view of one of the prominent citizens of South Africa, that's Julius Malema, on xenophobia.
It's unjustifiable. Not even a white person who has committed genocide here, not even de Klerk, deserve to be stoned with such a brick. You must subject him to a normal process. Let the law take its own course.
There's nothing. You don't own anything, yet you call people foreigners. You are a foreigner yourself because you do not own. Foreigners means visitors. Visitors are people who just come empty-handed with a small bag. When the time permits, they go. That's you. You are renting. You are marching from the hostels, beating up people that they must leave South Africa. Yet you do not own a hostel. You are paying a rent in that hostel. You can be removed yourself from that hostel. You are telling people to leave your country. You come from an apartment, you come from a flat, you come from a house, you have no paper. When you return back home after taking out Zimbabweans, the white man will be at the door showing you the way out of the rented flat, out of the rented house, out of the rented apartment. You have nothing to show. Yet you claim this is your country. You have nothing. You are defending a white man's property. This South Africa is owned by a white man. This South Africa is controlled by the white man.
Vintage Honorable Julius Malema. Babajide, this visit of President Muhammadu Buhari to South Africa with a 14-man delegation, what will be on the card? What do you expect to happen? Just fresh memory from the xenophobic attack of last month.
Yes, the president would convey the message to his host that Nigerians deserve to be protected in that country. No country is an island. There is no country in this world that its citizens do not go out to seek greener pasture. Americans are going to China. Some of them are learning the Chinese language and going to China to take up jobs. And that's a country that its economy is doing well at this time. So it is not a crime for people to go to South Africa, Africans to go to South Africa in search of greener pasture. Well, as you saw, as Julius Malema said, it makes no sense for them to be attacking Africans. In fact, he made the point that Mugabe will have taken over lands owned by white people. Immediately he took office, but he knew that that would jeopardize the chances of South African majority rule in South Africa. That would jeopardize the defeat of apartheid. So he decided to pull back a little bit, waited for South Africans to gain independence, in inverted commas, before taking the action. And that is a man whose countrymen are being killed, who are being stoned to death, just because South Africans believe that, oh, the jobs that they ought to take, white people, I mean, fellow black Africans are taking those jobs because they argue that, oh, like Nigeria, for example, your currency is weak. Because it's weak, the white man is prepared to pay you peanuts and you take it. But in their own case, their currency is strong. So what is big money to the Nigerian who is resident in South Africa, who has plans to send money home? It's not necessarily big money to the South African, because our currency is weak. I think the South African rand is in the region of 6.9 to the dollar, which means it is quite strong. Our currency is so far away from the dollar. So the president has to tell his host that, look, Nigerians must be protected. It's legitimate for people to go to another country as long as they are not involved in crime. You have no reason to go and be burning the car mats of Nigerians in South Africa. People who have good jobs, they are surviving, and then you set in ablaze their business premises. So we must get guarantees that this kind of attacks on our people will not happen again. Our president must show leadership, and he must show that, look, well, even when we say that Africa remains the corner piece of our foreign policy, it doesn't mean that we should now behave like weak people. No. Our foreign policy must not present us as weak people. Nigeria remains the leader on the continent, and the president must get that message across. And look, we can move against South African interests here. Goodluck Jonathan came close to doing that when they were not prepared to release the facts that were needed to nail Henry Oka. Invariably, they had to arrest Henry Oka and put him on trial, and he was jailed over the October 1 bombing. So this is the thing. Our people must be protected, because I know a lot of them who came home will soon go back, but they need those guarantees that their lives will not be in danger when they go back.
Lekon, how would you describe the situation in South Africa and the situation whereby we have a lot of Nigerians and they have investments there, they're in key strategic sector, and these South Africans are saying, okay, foreigners leave our country?
It's incredible that South Africans had to do that. Let me take you back. In the 1960s, in my primary school, I had South African classmates in primary school in the 60s. That's how far back Nigeria has been, involved in fighting apartheid. Apart from when General Murtala Mohammed and General Obasanjo raised the bar with more, when they came up with the idea that Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policies. It's incredible that will happen. And especially in the face of reluctance by South Africa and Nigeria to even sign the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. That is not the time for this kind of thing to be happening. And you probably want to know that I think it was Abike Dabiri who said between 2016 and 2018, 177 Nigerians were killed in South Africa. And then after Ramaphosa became president, I think in April or so last year, he came to Nigeria. Nigeria was the first country that he visited outside of Southern Africa. And this was also in the wake of another attack against Nigerians. Listen, South Africa, whether it is blacks or whites that own the businesses, they have banking, they have telecommunication business, they have hospitality business in Nigeria, they have all kinds. Whatever it is, whatever returns that they have, they send it back to their country. The same way we send diaspora fund from Europe and America back to Nigeria. They remit a lot of money. I recall that last year, was about 2017, I remember when MTN was penalized for some infractions concerning unused
unregistered
SIM cards. That was one of the things that President Ramaphosa came to discuss last year. It shows you that our economy is strategic to the economy. I will explain that. We have free oil money flowing. Unfortunately, we do not have the strong infrastructure to engage our fund. So we end up buying. And they are strategically prepared to produce things that we can buy. All you need is go to all these South African retail shops and you see the things that are there. You know, I hope you know that, for example, Iru is cheaper in this, low-cost beans is cheaper in these shops than if you go to our markets. Why? They have cheap funds to go and buy these things in our markets. In bulk. For a large, so they take advantage of large-scale production and as well as their lower interest rate. And then they come into this economy, and then somebody needs to explain to the South Africans on the street that this is a no-no. I was not happy at what happened in one of the retail outlets in Lagos here, when some Nigerians went to vandalize some places. But it probably tells them a story that if they continue, there's something called MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction. If you are going to destroy Nigerian lives over there, you better be careful. Nigerians are also, you have investments here, and there are Nigerians, there are South Africans also here. As I told you, I had South African classmates in the primary school as well as in the university in Nigeria. So there's a lot for the South African government, economy to gain from us. And if they continue like that, I think they are going to be the loser at the end of the day.
Imagine, what is this crave, as in this fashion that anytime our people, they want to just get out of Nigeria at all costs? And look at people going to Libya, because in the last 3, 4, 5 years, since the death of Gaddafi, I don't think that country has been stable. But you still find out that people still go there, or people still pass that place as a route wanting to go to Europe.
It's not like they really want to go to Libya. Their goal is to end up in Europe, end up
by roads.
By waterways, end up in those countries that are the closest to North Africa, Spain, Malta, you know. So the truth is, if you've been unemployed for 8 years, there are people roaming the street for 8 years, they can't find a job. And someone who's been abroad tells you, look, I can take you out of this country so that you can make ends meet abroad. Of course, you want to take the opportunity, especially if you are squatting with an uncle and you have to put up with a petulant wife of your uncle. Honestly, if they tell you that there is a job somewhere, even if it's a job that can readily kill you, you want to go and do that job so that you can be on your own. You see, a poor economy is one reason people want to go abroad to seek for greener pastures. Look at countries, Africans who are in South Africa. A lot of them, their economies back home are not doing well. Talk about the Zimbabweans. Of course, everyone knows that the Zimbabwean economy is prostrate. It's prostrate. So people would want to leave that country and go elsewhere. It's just like in America. People think that, oh, once they get into America, their lives will be better. So they will risk their lives, move out of Mexico, where the economy is not that good and crime is very rampant, and move into America through whatever means, either through Arizona or any state that is close to Mexico. So this is the thing. If our economy gets better, a lot of people will return home. Remember what happened with Ghana. Ghanaians came here now in droves in the early 80s. But the moment their economy picked up and they had a good leader, they went back home. We can all remember, for those of us who were old enough at the time, we chased them out of here.
Ghana must go.
We chased them out of here. But they went back to their country. Today, many Nigerians are going to Ghana to make ends meet, to see how they can make ends meet. That it is not their fault.
People from Ghana.
It is not their fault. And it is not a crime to embark on economic immigration. It is not a crime. So countries must protect foreigners. So I can't understand how in this age and time, South Africans will be smashing people's heads with big stones just because they came to work in their country. And these are people who laid down their own lives to ensure the freedom that they now have. That is why it's so bad.
Lekon, so how do we stem this tide? Are young people always craving to go out?
Well, I don't think, just as Bagide has said, I disagree that with anybody who says people must not travel out. I traveled out and I came back. So I always encourage people to go out. It's even good for you, for your personal growth and development. You need another perspective to life rather than just a monochrome approach to life, you know. So I encourage people to go. However, I understand that those who now become economic migrants are doing, let me give you one or two examples. When I used to write a column for a newspaper, the guy who used to edit my column, fantastic guy, he migrated, after he left, he went to join a bank, went to join the corporate affairs department of a bank, and then the bank collapsed in the 2009 tsunami. And then he was jobless. He found his way to South Africa. Two things. He got an employment, and then he got himself opportunity to improve himself and get a PhD. I think he has done well for himself. You know, I'm not going to say that somebody like that should not have gone. You know, but we need to run our economy. And I always give an example of my own family business. My father was involved in 2 textile companies. The 2 of them are sitting down moribund. Nobody is working. I was there on Sunday. I saw grass overgrowing the factory. At a point, there were 1,600 people working in those factories. Now, those people are jobless or even dead. So if one of them, and I know 1 or 2 of them who are now in South Africa, it is because conditions back at home.
They were pushed to take the decision.
Pushed. If I didn't have enough support, I probably would be in South Africa. I have friends, classmates who are in the wine industry in South Africa who are asking me to come. I simply said, no, I'm not coming. I have reasons to stay back in Nigeria.
All right. Moving on now, the power supply challenge in Nigeria is becoming more hydra-headed. From generation, transmission to distribution, the power problems in the country are becoming more multifarious. Electricity supply in the country is suffering steady decline due to intractable bickering among key operators, while the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and the Association of Nigeria Electricity Distributors engage in war of words over the state of the sector. Average daily supply of electricity fell to 3,473 megawatts between July and September. This is according to the operational report from the Office of the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo. Julius, we touched on this power yesterday, and it's not something we can keep discussing about power every day because it's so germane to our lives.
Yeah.
Now, why do you have, the little we have, why do you have instability? Sometimes we do 4,000, sometimes it will be 5,000, and sometimes it will have to go down.
All kinds of problems. Gas constraints, hydro limitations, transmission limitations. For example, the 25 gas-fired power plants that we have, none of them is functioning at installed capacity because of gas constraints. We've not been able to solve the problem of gas constraints. It's either power farms are owing gas suppliers, or some youths in the Niger Delta area are breaking gas pipelines that are meant to supply gas to the power plants. So gas constraint is a very big problem. And sometimes you do not expect it. You could generate 4,000 megawatts today, and after a few days, you have gas constraints. You can't generate even close to that. Egbin is the biggest thermal station in West Africa. Egbin has never functioned at its installed capacity because of this gas problem.
Why do you have this gas problem? I think Nigeria is one of the largest gas producers in the world.
It's a tragedy of the kind of country that we find ourselves, that in the midst of plenty, you have this problem. But I've also told you that sometimes they owe the gas suppliers. And if someone consistently owes you,
You won't supply
you
again.
don't continue to supply. So this is a sector that is facing serious liquidity crisis. And that's why you find that over time, government has always come in to try to help them, to try to reflate the GENCOs, help the distributors, because they simply do not have the funds to keep this sector going and to ensure that we have consistent supply of electricity. This is the situation. As we speak now, government is trying to release another humongous sum of money to the stakeholders in the sector, just to see how we can get around this problem. I'm happy with the coming of Siemens. The coming of Siemens will eventually be a game changer. But we must commit funds consistently.
What are they going to be doing?
No, they are going to help in all the sectors, all the subsectors within the power sector. Siemens will play a big part in reflating them. They are going to assist the GENCOs, they are going to assist the distributors, and in fact, TCN, the Transmission Company of Nigeria. So that's why they are trying to come together, get all of them to come together and work together. For now, we are unable to get all those component parts to work together. If we generate and the transmission company cannot will what you generate. If the transmission company does its own part and the distribution companies say no, we only distribute so megawatts, then that's a problem. It's like a relay. Everyone must function optimally for us to have the needed result. But that is not what is happening. Each of these subsectors have their problems. That's why I talked about gas constraints, limiting the GENCOs, hydro limitations, because some of those hydro plants, because you need to, they are old, the equipment are old, they need to do something like desilting even those dams. so that they can generate a lot more. Right now, if you go to look at Kanji, Kanji is not doing very well. Not the Kanji. We used to rely on Kanji now.
Your country.
But Kanji is nowhere near its installed capacity. Same thing Shiroro, same thing Jeba. So this is why, and if hydro cannot complement the thermal stations, I can tell you that sometimes even these thermal stations, about 7 of them, 7 out of 25, may not even be functioning at all. You find that in a week or 2 weeks, because of all kinds of problems, gas constraints, they will shut down. So how will you have consistent electricity?
Lekon, how do we get out of this problem?
How do we get out of this problem? Well, some have said, I'm sure you know that most of them have been privatized. That's the Gencos and the Discos. And then the transmission company that is in between is a bureaucracy. Whereas you have commercial enterprises generating and then also distributing. I think that's one.
Government is still heavily involved in
the middle. That's one problem. Then, government is a big debtor to the discos. Government is a big debtor to the discos. I recall sometime last year that the Minister of Power Works and Housing was talking to the military, the Army, the Navy, and the rest of it. Please just pay your bills, what you owe, pay to the discos. So that by the time the Gencos generate and upload to the transmission company, that has its own limitation. Now, they are supposed to send, transmission company is supposed to send this to the discos. The discos will tell you that, look, what you have generated now, we cannot buy it off you. So that becomes a problem. There's a stalemate there, right there. In addition to the fact that for every megawatt that they get, there is a kind of invisible taxation that the federal government puts on it. That's another problem for the discos. You know, I'm sure you've heard that they have been denying it, though, that they will increase prices, the tariffs by 2020. It's like a ping pong. Yes, we will do it. No, we didn't say so. We are, sometime about
Is the tariff low generally?
That's a very good. It's
not profitable for.
It's not profitable for them. It's not profitable for them. But my question is this: why would we have transmission company why would you have a bureaucracy in the middle of commercial enterprises? Do you understand? I think that's a problem. Plus, like I said, government is a huge debtor. It is not paying. So that's one of the problems of this. And then one other thing I always say is this: we have a huge personnel problem, human resource problem in this country. And it's not, when I say that, I don't just mean staff who are working. I also mean the people who have even bought these companies. A lot of them don't even have the technical expertise. And they don't also have the financial competence to run the companies that they have bought. And so we end up subsidizing them after we have sold it to them. All the profit goes to them, and then still we are subsidizing them. Isn't something that's a form of indirect taxation for us again? And I think something is wrong with that. So your question is, what is the way out of this? There has to be a way you get all the stakeholders to sit down, identify the areas, and tackle them. Whoever is owing should please pay. Now, if you cannot run this company, and I think that's something the former Minister of Power was running away from. He probably did not want to say, look, why don't we get this thing back and get whoever knew somebody else to buy. And I think somebody flew that kite.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we come back from this break. We'll take this break. We'll be right back after this time out. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's still Journalist Hangout, and we are looking at a problem of power in Nigeria. But actually, looking at these companies now, a lot of people will say, why don't we get more people on board so that there can be competition or people that have more investment, more money, and better expertise than this set of people?
Well, the thing is, if you want to completely deregulate the sector, why not completely deregulate it? because that's not what we have done. And if you have a situation in which government still dictates the price, the tariff, electricity tariff, then many players will not want to get involved
Be
with the
attractive.
sector. Yes, it won't be attractive to them. You see, it's just like petroleum. Look at petroleum. Look around us on the West Coast. We are the only country that has refused to completely deregulate
the downstream sector.
Yes, we are the only country. And you don't have, because some people continue to make money from subsidy. We do not want to think along that line. Continue to set aside so much money for subsidy. The sort of money that you do not spend on education. The sort of money that you do not spend on health. Infrastructure is suffering. Our infrastructure is more than 40 years old in some cases. Look at even the transmission, a lot of these transmission lines. Some of them had been there since the 40s. They are already old, weak. So how won't we have problems? What I want to see is a situation in which the GENCOs have the capacity, according to Siemens now, the GENCOs have the capacity to generate up to 13,000 megawatts. You know, we've been talking about 10,000 for so long. But we are nowhere near doing that. Because what is the point? If we generate it and they can't, and transmission can't will what we generated, it becomes a problem. Look at the transmission. Their tested installed capacity is 5,500 megawatts maximum. On February 7, 2016, we generated 5,074 megawatts, but we were only able to transmit 4,557. That's the highest transmission ever. The second highest, 17 December 2018, we generated 5,222 megawatts and then transmitted 4,049. 7th of February 2019, we generated 5,373 megawatts and then transmitted 4,323.
So we could only transmit.
The capacity to generate is there. But the transmission, the company of Nigeria cannot take in all that we can generate. This is a fact. Because a lot of their transmission lines are old. They need to freshen up these transmission lines, invest consistently in the sector, you know, buy new stuff so that you will be able to expand the capacity to transmit. If we do not do that, it will amount to just simply winking in the dark.
I think Usman is calling us from Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Usman.
Good evening, Mr. Ayo.
Good evening, Usman. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you for your job well done. It's only God in heaven that will reward you people abundantly.
Amen.
Yes, good evening. Yes. Please, I want to, before I go into your topic of discussion, please, I want to draw you back a little. I hope people have not forgotten the 3 policemen that were murdered in Taraba.
We treated it last week, yes.
Hammering on this matter until justice is done. For the past, they say the report will be ready in 2 weeks' time. We are going to the 3rd week. Nothing has been heard about that thing. Please, journalists and people should try about that. The 3 policemen, the IRT that was murdered. Then that is one. Then secondly, please, about this your topic you are discussing today. As I speak with you now, they say meter today is for sale. 36,991 naira and some fractions. That is not enough. They went further. So now add another 3,900 something that I say VAT and tax. After that, you now go and pay another 5,000 to Lekan. The total amount now is about 47,000 naira. Yet the meter is not still available. Where are we in this country? The highest 419 I have ever seen in the world, in Nigeria here, is the NEPA. You will go and buy a transformer yourself,
NEPA
buy
still
electric pole yourself, buy the wire yourself, erect
It has
it,
become a
and then
generic
become
for
NEPA
electricity
property.
supply.
Thank you, Ma. I feel it's a common problem. Mr. Shote, this prepaid meter, I don't know when it's going to go around.
It's still part of their lack of capacity.
Let me give you my personal experience. I went to the NEPA office, which is not too far from this place. Say, please, I no longer want estimated. Yes. What do we do? And I went there. They said I should fill some forms. I filled the forms. They came to my house to look at the apartment. They checked all the points and all that, and they said, okay, I should come. Since 2012. After I went there for about 10 times, I got tired and I went back and I left it. That is my own personal experience. I'm sure that people have something more.
This 2019.
Yes. That's about how many years?
7 years ago.
Yes, after 10 years, not far from this place. You can almost walk there if you like. I'm sure you know where I'm talking about. Yes, So as I was saying that, we need to get the stakeholders together. Those who bought those companies, somebody needs to sit them down and interrogate them. You must upgrade your skills, your capacity to deliver. Otherwise, there's something called when you can no longer agree to do something, you call it off and say, well, force majeure, which they had called about 2 years ago, that they will pull this force majeure thing. I think Nigeria too can pull it on them and say, listen guys, if you won't get us this result, maybe you have
powerful people.
I know there are generals and there are former
bank MDs,
head of states and so on involved. I know all that. But look, they too are suffering. In their own homes, they are running generators in their own homes. And I don't think they are comfortable with that. And I don't think it's fair for them to put all of us, all the 200 million of us, into this kind of strait. It is not good. And it's affecting industry. I need to let you know, it is affecting
Small
industry.
scale businesses,
practically everything.
It's affecting their margins, seriously. If you look at flour mills does not depend on public electricity anymore. And you know what that means? It means that they will have to be using diesel. A company as big as that, one of the biggest companies in the country.
And look at the revenue that they have lost by flour mills of Nigeria not being on their grid.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
And finally, the struggle for power goes far beyond winning an election. In the Nigerian experience, it extends into legal battles in the courtroom. 3 governors in the country have their electoral victories validated by the governorship election petition tribunals in their states. The tribunal in Kano upheld the election of Governor Abdullahi Ganduje when it dismissed the petition of the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Abba Yusuf, in the 23rd March poll. The panel of judges ruled that the reliefs sought by the petitioners are not grantable. The governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, and that of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, are also victorious at the tribunal. Julie, let's take it one by one. Yeah. That election in Kano, we had a situation whereby it wasn't done once, and they had to go for rerun some areas of the state. At the end of the day, Governor Abdullahi Ganduje was declared by the Independent National Electoral Commission. So, but a lot of people, the People's Democratic Party, they said, look, they are sure that it was what they call a daylight robbery, that they are going to challenge it at the tribunal, and the tribunal has now upheld the election of Governor Abdullahi Ganduje.
And that's the story. No doubt, violence was recorded, especially during the rerun. And a lot of people couldn't vote. But once you cannot produce enough evidence to
back your claims.
Yes. The issue is not whether those things happened or not.
The burden of proof.
The issue is you must, across all the polling centers in dispute, you must come up with evidence.
It's difficult.
Come up with witnesses who will say, look, this is what happened. Oh, in Gamma Ward, they broke someone's head. Oh, in Gamma Ward, the results were falsified, this and that. If you make such claims, you then need to provide the voters register and show that indeed there was overvoting in those areas. A lot of petitioners, an overwhelming majority of petitioners this year have failed to substantially prove their case. The truth is, INEC has to feel greater pressure, because if INEC does not organize an election properly,
people will go to school.
The courts need to be able to get INEC to prove that it indeed organized the election, that the election was not a sham. But right now, it is the petitioner that the pressure usually comes on. You get the point that I'm making? INEC has now been made to look like a Greek god, whereby whatever INEC says, once INEC declares someone a winner, it's not likely to be overturned. That is the pattern that we are seeing this year. In the past, some of those things, but consistently, we are seeing
2007.
No matter, it then means that no matter how flawed
the election is,
the election
if you can't
was,
do the paperwork right.
You will never, the way it's going, you will never be able to summon enough witnesses. You will never be able to garner enough evidence to overturn what is perceived to be election rigging. So this is the thing. The pressure is not on INEC. I believe that INEC, because in many cases, INEC, even by its own actions, got people disenfranchised. I believe that in many cases, INEC cannot in true conscience say elections were free and fair and conducted in compliance, in substantial compliance with the Electoral Act and its guidelines. Because I've seen even INEC complain that people will come and disrupt an election, this and that. Remember, if the resident electoral commissioner in Kogi was complaining the other day, was saying that, look, he fears that the election could be violent. So this is what we are saying. If it turned out that the election, as the man said, got violent, shouldn't INEC be compelled to defend itself that the election that it organized was indeed free, fair, and credible, and conducted in compliance with the Electoral Act and its own guidelines? So if we cannot put INEC in the dock and get INEC to really prove that its elections were conducted and everything was free and fair, definitely we'll have problems, because it is just the petitioners that you now tell go and bring evidence. But you and I, who are journalists who cover election, we know and we see clearly where thugs will go and stop people from voting somewhere. So this is the thing. It's now looking like, look, whatever you need to do to win an election, you better do it.
That's what I wanted to ask Mr. Shote, because it's now becoming increasingly difficult to get justice or to be able to prove your case in the court of law.
Let me help Babajide a little bit. I have a lawyer friend who tells me that the court or the judge is not a Father Christmas. He does not give you what you don't ask for. Meaning, if you don't prove it, you don't get it. It is said that you pronounce a man guilty until with beyond reasonable doubt. And if you now come and say, well, Ganduje, please knock off about 400,000 of his votes, knock off about 200,000 of my votes, so that his votes will now be lower than my own, what was counted for him. And you don't substantially, establish that, then they throw the thing back at you and say, well, you have not established. Remember when a judgment came, they said on technical grounds, because somebody who wrote a judgment was not available. Therefore, you throw the case away.
Now you didn't attend that, that sitting.
The procedure.
So things like that tell you that...
must not be absent from any of the sittings.
Now, something tells me that how about those individuals who were officials of INEC at those points? Isn't it possible to have a criminal charge against them to start with? Even if you cannot, at some points, reverse the decision. But some people, if somebody goes to jail, a time will come that they will be more careful.
No, some of them have even been arrested now, because the truth is, INEC played a part, even in corrupting the process. INEC staff, remember even 2015 election, see sacks of money recovered from INEC staff, and some of them are on trial now. Even this last one, some INEC staff are being told to explain how certain amounts of money were found on them. So the truth is, our elections are imperfect. But I want us to get to a point where there is the slightest evidence of vote rigging, because it smears the process and calls to question the fidelity of the process. We should be able, judges should be able to do something about it, because if we don't do that, look, our elections will continue to be what people will simply not have faith in.
A sham.
Yes.
And you don't have
Nii
confidence.
is calling us from Port Harcourt. Thank you for joining us, Nii.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I just want to make comment on the topic on INEC and the politicians.
Okay.
I think the politician should be the one to prove. Even the petitioner and the one petitioning and the other person should be the one to prove it, not INEC. INEC is the empire. If there's a violence in any of the polling booth units, I think the petitioner, the one opposing the election or wanting the election to be disqualified, should be the one to prove. Then at the same time, even the opponent, in the case of Kano now, I think the governor and the APC and the PDP should be able to prove there's no violence in each of the war they are talking about. Not INEC. INEC is all the empire, because the thugs we talk about are not INEC thugs. They are politicians' thugs.
Thank you, thank you, Nii.
Can I just say
okay.
something to that, Ayo? Because INEC officers, leave INEC. INEC officers should be liable to criminal charges if they help to violate election results. That's where we should start from.
Today, I want to take you back.
Does not understand the point that I'm making. Look, in Plateau State, during the sitting of the tribunal, the INEC head of operations was summoned. And he said, look, the election was free and fair. So it's not like because you are the umpire, you cannot be called to come and explain whether these allegations that are made that you indeed held a free and fair election. Because if the evidence is there for all to see, you then need to defend your actions. Did you organize? When did you bring voting materials to a point? Did you refuse to take voting materials to some areas where a political party was deemed strong? Does Nii not know that INEC sometimes does this? Remember, you covered the election in Anambra. Look at what happened to INEC staff. INEC staff working in the yes. Look at what they did. They conspired to rig the election. I'm sure you still remember.
I remember that case.
Yes, INEC staff working in their IT unit. They will deliberately remove the names where they see that a particular candidate is wrong. They will remove the names of voters from that point and take them to somewhere else.
Yes.
Remember Ngige's father?
Yes.
You know, this is the point. We know what we are talking about. Ngige's father could not vote. He got to the point where he registered. He didn't see his name. Some of these things are deliberately done.
Exactly.
So that to whittle down your...
help some particular candidate.
Yes, that's right. And which I think is criminal.
It's criminal.
It's criminal.
Before
And you are saying we should leave them.
Before the amendment of the Electoral Act in 2010, we witnessed, okay, the election of Kaide Fayemi.
Yeah.
They went to court. Raouf Aregbesola went to court. Adams Oshomole went to court. What's the name? Mimiko went to court. And they were able to prove, you know, after months, we didn't have this 180 days and everything. Aregbesola spent 48 months trying to get back his mandate and everything. So what I'm saying is that, as at that time, the courts could do one or two things, but immediately the Electoral Act was amended and everything, the courts was now limited in their power. So right now, the court will only educate on what they see.
The court cannot award votes.
They cannot award vote again. They cannot deduct vote the way they were doing it that time. Yeah. So it makes your faith that on election day, is that
what the Electoral Act now says that, okay, elections must be decided through voting. So if there are problems, they could call for a fresh election. If there is substantial violation of the fresh election, that's what they are saying.
Areas.
But if judges are finding it difficult to even order fresh election, even where it is clear, look at the rerun election in Kogi for the House of Reps, the House of Reps seat. Go and look at the number of cancelled votes and the margin of victory. Yet, there was no call for a fresh election. Whereas in some cases, they will say, okay, they should go and do fresh election. So even there is inconsistencies. So this is the thing.
Even Sokoto State, I think, was it Sokoto that would have won with, is it 35 votes?
Yes, Tambua won with very low
is it
margin.
35 votes?
42.
342.
But I think that...
It was 3,000 before, or a little over 3,000, but there was
They narrowed the
75,000
gap
that was...
after the rerun.
So they now, and then it became
after the rerun,
just
they narrowed the
342, which is
Because
ridiculous.
the APC did quite well in the rerun, so they were able to narrow the gap. But I think that when you look at the fact that Tambua was in a rival party, despite the Buharis tsunami, despite the fact that, okay, APC was the ruling party, the people of Sokoto still felt that between Tambua and Aliyu, a man who had been sent House of Rest Speaker, in terms of standing, is head and shoulder above a protege of Magataka Wamako, and they decided to vote for Wamako. I knew it would happen, and I predicted it 2 times.
We decided to vote for Tambua.
I mean, Tambua.
I think this gentleman was his deputy at the time, was it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So, and they decided to vote for him. So, I think this validates the fact that Tambua indeed won the election. And when you look at even Plateau, they really, they couldn't prove their
Between
case.
Jeremiah Oseni and Samuel Along.
Yes, because they were arguing that in places where the PDP was strong, that the elections were rigged in those places. Exactly. They also argued that Lalong was not qualified to contest. But it's not enough to simply say these things. You must prove. And I was reading what Fagbemi San said. We submit that the petitioner have failed to prove any entitlement to any of their reliefs sought in the petition. Therefore, the petition should be dismissed. This was what Fagbemi.
Latif Fagbemi.
Yes. And the tribunal
upheld that.
Yes, granted Fagbemi's wish. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to do.
So look on short, I must win my election on election day.
Yes.
Remember, when I once said it on this program that when people say you can only win where you are strong. I said in Nigeria it's a lie. We've seen people win election even where they are not strong at all. And I gave the example of the man in one of the states of the South, who went to the INEC returning officer, put a gun to his neck and said, give me a certificate of return. He said, but you didn't win the election, you're asking for a certificate of return. He said, give me a certificate of return or I'll blow your head. They gave him a certificate of return under duress. They looked at it and said, idiot, see him. When we have it, the server, we have the authentic result. They now release the authentic result. You know what he did? He went to court. And the court ruled that a certificate of return duly given can only be taken away by a court. And the court refused to take it away from him. So was that guy popular when he won an election? Oh. Did he have to be popular to win? Right. So this is the thing.
No. I want to thank you, Lekon Shote. Welcome back, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And BQ, thank you as usual. And that's it on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzubako. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.